Hey class, I'm going to read Wayside School Gets a Little Stranger, Grand Reopening, and this is chapter 5, a story with, I can't read backwards, a disappointing ending. Okay. Paul's father was a security guard at a museum. The museum had a very famous painting. It was painted by Leonardo da Vinci. It was called the Mona Lisa. Next to the painting was a sign that says, "Do not touch." I understand this because I went to the museum in San Francisco and I wanted to reach out and touch something, and a voice came right out of the sky and says, "Ma'am, step back." So, they don't want you touching any kind of paintings in the museums at all. So, all day, Paul's father made sure nobody touched the painting. At night, after the museum closed, Paul's father was alone, just him and the Mona Lisa. And the sign that said, "Do not touch. Do not touch. Do not." He was dying to touch it. The tips of his fingers tingled with desire. But this story isn't about Paul's father. It's about Paul. Paul was a student in Mrs. Jewell's class. He sat behind Leslie. Leslie had two long brown pigtails that reached down to her waist. They just hung there all day, right in front of Paul's face. It's like the Mona Leslie. Do not touch, do not touch, do not touch. Paul reached out and grabbed and yanked. "Yeah!" screamed Leslie. And Mrs. Jewell sent Paul to the counselor's office. The counselor's office was on the 4th floor. Paul had never been there before. Like every student in Wayside School, he was afraid of the counselor. The counselor had a very scary face with big bushy eyebrows and a little beard on his little pointed chin. Paul knocked on the door. "Come in," said the counselor. Paul entered and sat down on the couch. "What's the problem?" asked the counselor. "I pulled Leslie's pigtails again," said Paul. "I know it's wrong, but I just can't help myself." "Watch the pickle," said the counselor. And Paul's eyes went back and forth as he stared at the swaying pickle. "You are getting sleepy," said the counselor. "Your eyelids are getting heavy." And Paul suddenly felt very tired. He could hardly keep his eyes open. "When I count to 3, said the counselor, "you will fall into a deep, deep, deep sleep. 1, 2, 3. Paul closed his eyes. He wasn't exactly asleep. He felt like he was living in a dream, but it was a very pleasant dream. He felt happy and safe. "Can you hear me?" asked the counselor. "Yes," said Paul. He was no longer afraid of the counselor. In fact, he liked him a lot. "You will do what I say," said the counselor. "I will do what you say," repeated Paul. "I'm going to count to 5, said the counselor, "and then you will wake up. You will return to your classroom, and you will take your seat behind Leslie. You will want to pull one of her pigtails, but when you reach for it, it will turn into a rattlesnake." "Leslie's pigtails are rattlesnakes," said Paul. "Very good," said the counselor. "Now, just one more thing." He rubbed his beard and he smiled. "When Leslie says the word pencil," when Leslie says the word pencil, her ears will turn into candy, the most delicious candy in the world, the candy of your dreams." Paul licked his lips. He could almost taste the rich chocolate and chewy caramel. "And you will try to eat the candy." "When Leslie says pencil, I will eat her ears, said Paul, and the counselor counted to 5. Paul's eyes blinked open. You may go back to class now, said the counselor. I'm not in trouble, asked Paul. Oh, no, said the counselor, and Paul shrugged and he returned to class. And as he passed Leslie, she stuck out her tongue at him, and he sat down behind her. What did the counselor do to you, asked Eric Fry. Nothing, he's really a nice man. He looked at Leslie's pigtails. He had pulled the one on the left, but he still wanted to pull the one on the right, and he lunged for it. It hissed at him, and its tail rattled. He screamed, and he fell back over in his chair. Everyone laughed. Paul, are you all right? Asked Mrs. Jules. I guess so, said Paul, getting back up. He didn't much feel like pulling Leslie's pigtails anymore. And it was just a short while later that Leslie's pencil broke. Oh, great, she complained. What's the matter? Asked Jenny, who sat next to Leslie. Leslie showed her the broken pencil point. Do you want to borrow mine? Asked Eric Fry, who sat behind Jenny. No, I'll just go sharpen it. She went to the back of the room and she sharpened her pencil, and she returned to her seat and she sat the pencil down on her desk, but it rolled off when she sat down. Hey, where did it go? She asked, turning around. Where did what go? Asked Paul. There it is, said Jenny, under Paul's desk. What's under my desk? Asked Paul. I'll get it, said Eric Fry. He reached under Paul's desk, picked up the pencil, and handed it to Leslie. She thanked him, and everyone returned to work. I think we have enough time to go ahead and read Chapter 6, Pet Day. Something else is going to come up about the candy and the ears and stuff, but apparently it's not doing it yet. So, Pet Day. All the kids in Mrs. Jules' class brought a pet to school. The room was very noisy. Dogs barked, cats meowed, a frog croaked, a pig squealed, a cow mooed. Who brought a cow to school? I don't know. Birds tweeted. Mrs. Jules held up 2 fingers. All the animals became quiet. Stephen didn't have a pet, so he brought an orange. He brought an orange, and he kept it in a cage on his desk so it couldn't escape. Todd brought Ralphie, his baby brother. Todd, said Mrs. Jules. Todd barked. You cannot have a pet human, said Mrs. Jules. He doesn't bite, Todd assured her. Joy told Todd to sit and be quiet. Mrs. Jules got a large piece of poster board from the supply closet. Let's make a chart, she said. Across the top of her chart, she wrote name of kid, kind of pet, name of pet. She started with Dee Dee. She wrote Dee Dee under name of kid. And you have a dog? She asked. A cat, said Dee Dee. Cat? Said Mrs. Jules. Dee Dee nodded as she petted her dog. Mrs. Jules moved on to Ron. Ron, I see you have a cat. Dog, said Ron as he stroked the cat on his lap. Mrs. Jules shrugged and she said, okay. He's my dog, said GJ. Ron has your dog? Asked Mrs. Jules. No, Ron has a cat, said DJ. That's what I thought, but what's a dog, says Jenny. Mrs. Jules covered her ears and she shook her head. Wait, let's start all over again, said Mrs. Jules. She got a new piece of poster board from the supply closet. Mac, what's your dog's name? What's my dog's name, said Jenny. I'm not talking to you, Jenny. I'm talking to Mac. He can't talk, said Mac. Who can't talk, said Mrs. Jules. Mac, said Mac. Billy barked at Mac. Mac barked at Billy. Todd barked at both of them. Joy made Todd lay down by her feet. Mrs. Jules moved on. What's your pet, Myron? Your pet's a turtle, said Sherry. What? Asked Mrs. Jules. What is Jenny's pet, said Sherry. Jenny's pet is a dog, said Mrs. Jules. What's his name, Jenny? Jenny nodded. Her dog sat up straight and tall and seemed to smile at Mrs. Jules. He's handsome, said Mrs. Jules. My mouse is handsome, said Benjamin. Benjamin had a little white mouse in a cage on his desk. If you like mice, said Dana, making a face. Mrs. Jules likes mice, said Kelvin. She eats them. Gross, said Dana. He won't come when you call him, said Kathy. He doesn't know his name. Billy meowed. Will Mrs. Jules eat yogurt? Asked John. No way, said Kelvin. I will too, said Mrs. Jules. I like yogurt. I like strawberry the best. Mauricia beamed. Mrs. Jules likes strawberry the best, she bragged. You shouldn't pick favorites, complained Dana. Do you like crackers, Mrs. Jules? Asked Rondi. Don't worry, said Calvin. Mrs. Jules won't eat crackers. How do you know what I'll eat, Calvin? Asked Mrs. Jules, a little annoyed. I like eating crackers with cheese on top. Oh, gross, said Myron. He won't come when you call him, Kathy said again. What? Mac, keep Mac away from my socks, shouted Allison. Wait. Now you've got my socks and I've got your socks. I can tell the difference between my socks and your socks, Jason, said Allison. Mrs. Jules covered her ears and shook her head, and she moved on. What's your pet, Damien? She asked. I already told you he was a turtle, said Sherry. Sherry, I wasn't talking to you, said Mrs. Jules. I was talking to Damien. Your nose, a ferret, said Damien. My nose a ferret? Asked Mrs. Jules. My nose a hamster, said Joe. Billy bleated. Mrs. Jules licked her leg. Hey, Paul, said Leslie. I like your pigtails. Thanks, said Paul. May I touch your pajamas? Go ahead, said Bebe, who was already petting Leslie's pajamas. She won't scratch you. This is crazy, shouted Terrence. He's cute. Okay, so here, I'm not reading them all. I'm going to show you, though, is the name of kid, the kind of pet, name of pet, and look it. They have got some of the funniest things. I'm hoping you can see these. I'll read a few and then that's going to be done. Let's see. Dee Dee had a dog named Cat. Ron had a cat named Dog. DJ had a dog named OK. Jenny has a dog named What. Mac has a dog named Mac. Joy has a dog named Todd. Sherry had the turtle named Your Pet. Benjamin has a mouse named Handsome. Calvin had a cat named Mrs. Jules. Kathy had a skunk named Gross. John had a frog named Yogurt. Mauricia had a cat named Strawberry. Rondi had a bird named Crackers. Myron had a chipmunk named Cheese. Allison had a cat named Socks. Jason had a cat named Socks. And the rest of it is just kind of crazy. You'll have to check out the book. But for now, we're done with Chapter 6. And next week, we'll go on to Chapter 7 and 8. Okay, bye-bye.